name is Teddy Mo, and welcome to part 2 of the SCoBIRC Cirque web series. Today, the focus is on access to opportunity, where today we're going to have a panel with Dr. John Gensel, the director of SCoBIRC, and then also some art students, undergraduate students here at SCoBIRC, and what access to opportunity looks like to them.
I'm Guga Bojang. I am a junior majoring in neuroscience, and I'm currently in Dr. Hubbard's lab.
My name is John Gensel. I'm an associate professor of physiology, and I am the director of the Spinal Cord and Brain Injury Research Center. I also chair the arts program.
My name is Lauren Hill. I'm a rising senior in the ABT program, and I'm in Dr. DuPont and Dr. Mayer's lab.
So tell me a little bit about how you got to the University of Kentucky.
How did I get to the University of Kentucky? Well, I specifically went from Ohio State, where I'd done my graduate work and was a postdoc and then a fellow, a faculty member. I actually got down to the University of Kentucky because Kathy Satman, who is a faculty member here, actually wrote a letter of recommendation for me when I was an undergraduate at the University of Pennsylvania. And there was another professor here named Johnny Lifshitz, who was a graduate student in the same lab that I was in as an undergrad. And so kind of had those connections. And when I was sort of on the job market, Johnny specifically was like, hey, if you're looking for jobs, why don't you think about Kentucky? So,
that's cool.
Yeah, and I mean, it came to, there's a big spinal cord injury group here. That's what I'd done my graduate work on. And, so I always knew that it was a pretty good hotbed for that type of research. And that's what brought me down. And I was, up at Ohio State, which is about 3 hours away. It was not the hardest interview to get to. And so I actually asked for an interview. I said, hey, I'm going to come down for this annual meeting that happens in Kentucky. Can I just interview for a job while I'm here? And the rest is history, I guess. So
that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, asking for a job interview. That's
Yeah.
How did you come up with that idea?
It's funny because I really feel like I kind of bumbled my way through everything.
Sure.
Like I went to graduate school. I'm like, yeah, I want to become a professor. Like, did I know what that meant? No, I just did things. But when I look back, I'm like, something in there was guiding me to do that, right?
Yeah.
Like whoever says like, oh yeah, ask for an interview. And that just popped in my head and I said, why don't I ask? So maybe I was too naive to know what I wasn't supposed to do. And
Sure.
I
want to put that in my toolbox.
Yeah.
So how did you get involved with the arts program, or are you kind of the spearhead for that?
I'm not necessarily the spearhead for the arts program. The arts program was started by Joe Springer and Mark Prendergast and Warren Alian before I became director. But I was a faculty member here. It kind of came out of 2020 and some of the events that were going on there. When Joe Springer retired from being the director of the center, then I took over that directorship, and part of that was to chair the arts committee. So I think I inherited it more than not. But it's been a really rewarding program, and we've really been able to see it grow over the years, which is good. So yeah, I guess I stumbled my way in more or less, but I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
So who would you say you are, like, outside of lab?
Outside the lab, probably what defines me most outside the lab is the fact that I have 3 kids and I'm a husband and a dad, right? So my wife is a full-time anesthesiologist. She works at the VA. So I am the support parent. I'm the one that has to get the kids. I'm the one that gets them out in the morning. She's already at work. Whether I want that to be what I do or not, I mean, that's probably where I spend most of my time, and I'm happy to be that. That's really work and family. That's probably 95% of who I am, I would say.
Would you say that you have a good work-life balance?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I ran my own lab for 10 years or so, and then took on this administrative responsibility of directing the center. That's pushed that work-life balance a little bit. I'm working a little bit more into the evenings perhaps than I used to, not in an uncomfortable amount, but I think when I took the job and when I started my lab, I really said I'm going to frame how much work I have by my family commitments, and kind of really tried to hold those lines, and it's worked out pretty well.
That's good.
And the interesting thing for me was, when I thought about this administrative position, I tried to look for role models, and the ones that I looked to, they seemed like they were mostly men whose wives didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, I'm not going to be able to do that. Like, how am I going to work?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, I started looking to female role models, and they were the ones I could follow, because they were the ones who potentially had husbands who had working jobs, and they were balancing both and being home for their kids. And so that was kind of cool. So I found some really good role models there.
Very nice. So going back to the arts program, how do you think that it's impacted UK as a whole?
Well, I can definitely talk about how it's impacted, I think, the center. And I mean, you don't have to go far to see it, I think. I mean, just in terms of, these are buzzwords, right? But if you look at the diversity of the center and who is part of the center at all levels, from graduate students, postdocs, we even faculty recruit that's coming soon. I think it's really changed. The environment has drastically changed, and I think in large part because of the arts program. And I think that there's, times where underrepresented groups may not be so underrepresented when you actually look at the population that we have in SCoBIRC itself, especially during the summer, right, with the arts program. In terms of the impact it's had on the university, I think it's probably more indicative of a bigger cultural momentum and maybe effort at the university, where I was at a sort of retreat maybe a month ago, which was just looking at the College of Medicine on different programs, the summer programs we have, and I realized arts program is one of maybe 25 or 30 that are really trying to serve underrepresented groups in science. And being able to be a part of that and seeing, I think, the institutional support for it has really been a wonderful thing. So, I think I've had a number of institutions reach out to me and ask me how we're doing this. So I think there's also impact beyond this, and other programs that are trying to get similar, other institutions are trying to get similar programs started. So I think that's been a really positive impact. I've also just seen it maybe in some of the alumni and where they've gone on to, and others. I think, I can talk about multiple examples of individuals who really just kind of were overlooked for research opportunities, perhaps because of, rough starts for grades, perhaps for other reasons, who have then really taken in the arts program and then catapulted to new areas and kind of opened up new areas that they didn't even think about. And there's more than one person that's happened to, for sure. So that's definitely a positive impact. And I think a number of those individuals are really dedicated to Kentucky, University of Kentucky, and I think we may see those individuals in the future continuing to lead within their fields and having a positive impact back here at the university.
So talking about diversity, how would you describe the atmosphere of equity and access in research?
Well, of research, equity and access of research from a diversity standpoint. I think we have a ways to go, I would say that. The fact that I think that the center stands out as a perhaps more inclusive environment is not wonderful. We shouldn't necessarily stand out, right? We should be like every other department and center here. So I think there's some challenges there. An interesting challenge that I've noticed is that, just having a program, right, does not make us an enlightened, cultured, or inclusive center. And I think it's, and even at the university, if the university is doing a number of programs, it doesn't mean that just having a program now makes you understand and be able to create a truly inclusive environment. And I think at times it's a little easy to overlook that. I think we can say, oh yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff, and fail to remember that, kind of even the playing field or creating an environment in one setting of someone's life when they're there for 8 hours is not actually creating an environment that there's more to be done to really fully support people, right? If that makes sense. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. What do you think? How do you think about science and where we have to go or not? I'm going to throw the question back to you.
I'm not ready for a question.
I can throw it to you.
Okay. I can kind of only talk to my personal experience, but this program has really helped open my eyes to research, and that, hey, this is a space that's not only accessible to me, but like people want me in that space, and that's been really nice. And so yeah, and seeing my peers and seeing how well they're doing in their labs, it's just really encouraging overall. So going forward, I feel like in wherever my path takes me, I'll definitely be looking out for like, hey, this is something that is possible, having diversity or having various backgrounds and cultures impact science and the medical field. This is possible, and so it's just who's going to do it, or like how are we going to do it? So
Yeah, and well, you bring up a good point, and I think it's something that's often overlooked, right? I think that there's sort of this civic concept or something to create, an inclusive environment. But I think the reality is that I learn, we all learn better when we have varied opinions and varied life experiences on the table, I think, and in the research setting or scientific setting. And so I think it's often overlooked the massive advantages that everyone gets to experience by just having, different perspectives in it. I mean, one example I can give is, I had a graduate student in my lab who was a first generation college graduate, right? And it was during the pandemic, and she was in graduate school, and she was talking about how she was essentially getting harassed at home for being part of those, scientists that were advocating for vaccinations and sort of being made fun of to be in the medical field, right? And like, yeah, I would never think of that perspective, right?
Yeah.
That's not something that I experienced, and that was something that was really coming from her experiences as a first generation college student who was sort of, there was a lot of pride and happiness in her family, but then there was also this kind of, oh yeah, you're part of that sort of institutional problem that is keeping us down, right? So yeah, I think having those perspectives from everybody, everyone gets to benefit.
Yeah.
Have you thought about an answer there for yours, and how you think we're doing with our what steps need to be taken, or how science and research may be changing or accepting?
Well, before I came here, I was like imagining it to be like a predominantly white space, but I came into lab, and my lab is very diverse. And I was looking around, I was like, wow, there's like people that look like me, and I feel like programs like this really, set the stage for that. It's really interesting, actually, and I feel like we are making, good strides to, even out people that are in it.
Good. Wow.
As a director, how do you create access to a wide variety of opportunities to your team?
How to create access to? Well, I definitely benefited as a graduate student by sort of the networking and the connections that I was able to make as a student.
Yeah.
My advisors as a graduate student were pretty busy people. They actually were somewhat similar to what I am now. They were in administrative positions, and we didn't necessarily interact much on the day-to-day, sort of this is how you design experiments sort of way. But one thing they did wonderfully is they sent me to meetings. They sent me to, at times to do things that maybe they weren't available for, and I was able to teach them courses and that sort of stuff. So I really try hard to make sure that the folks in my lab have an opportunity to go to meetings, present their data, interact with other people in the field, and make those connections. I mean, I think also for me as a manager, not necessarily as a director, but I've sort of realized that the best way that I can probably motivate people is to try to clear the barriers out for them and let their motivation guide them. And so, I do that in part by providing resources and trying to reward good efforts, right? And so I like to say, I have 3 kids at home. I essentially am herding cats all the time. And my bandwidth for being the stick that needs to drive people is pretty much nothing. Like, I have nothing left after their kids. But I can provide some carrots, and I can try to, help you realize when you are successful and try to reward that. So I think that sort of fits into that accessibility idea for giving people opportunities. accessibility means different things too in different contexts. We're the Spinal Cord and Brain Injury Research Center, so accessibility has to do with part with disability and some of those things. And we have done things in the center you may notice we're probably the only floor that has automated openings for the lab doors, and that's to allow people who may have disability easy access to the lab. We've had to move some things around, vending machines and others. So we do try to do that, although there's a lot more stuff I'm sure we could do.
Yeah. So what would you say inclusivity looks to you?
Inclusivity looks to me, oh goodness, I'm gonna have to think for a second, get off my directorship. What does inclusivity look to me, huh? Well, yeah, so inclusivity to me is the concept that people can be who they want to be, and that who they are is okay.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And it takes efforts maybe on both sides to accommodate individuals, being mindful to not infringe on other people's space too, I guess. I mean, I think everyone has the right to come to work, feel comfortable at work. And what I've noticed, sort of maybe cultural changes, societal changes, is I think at some point there maybe was a little bit of a distribution of that inclusivity, perhaps by power or status, where it might have been okay for someone at a higher level to infringe a little bit on someone else who may be at a lower level, an undergrad or something. But I think that's changed. I think we're now in a place where everyone deserves sort of the same sort of protections, comfort at work, and regardless of whether you're director of the center or you're an undergraduate who's never done research before. So yeah, maybe inclusivity is easily summed up as being comfortable when you come to work. I don't know. Probably oversimplifying.
No, I agree. I feel like it's important to be able to, be really be who you are in any space you enter.
And again, I think you give, and I think you provide unique perspectives. That's how we solve problems, right? I mean, so we need to have everyone's views, and someone who's maybe acts differently, well, they probably think differently, and that different thinking may be the key for something that we haven't been able to figure out.
Right. Yeah.
So, as a mentor, what's your biggest goal in your career?
As a mentor, I mean, I do think about this. My biggest goal is for anyone who comes into the lab and now into the center to be in a better place than when they leave than they were when they started. And for me, it's pretty simple like that. And I don't even think I'm going to qualify what better is. I think that depends on your individual goals and what that may be. And I'm just as happy to try to mentor someone into a teaching position or into industry as to stay in academics, or to mentor someone into understanding they don't want to be doing research. To me, that's success too. So I mean, I think if people feel like they've learned something and they're coming out better, then that's success. And I think for me, I just, when I think back on kind of my achievements, and I'm old and gray, I think it'll be like how many people's lives I've touched, right? That'll be a big indication. Part of that is, my grandfather was a pastor. My dad is now retired, but is a pastor, and I didn't necessarily want to go down that route, but those things kind of, I think, factored into my head a little bit as I was kind of designing my career, I guess.
That's awesome.
So would you say being a mentor is fulfilling to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I love being a mentor. I think it's, in a lot of ways, we're trying to do things with our research to really help people, and hopefully that will come. But as you guys probably realize, now more actively involved in research, that process is somewhat slow, and times you really need to, it takes a certain amount of repeating and proof to really move it forward, but you can mentor someone in a day, right?
Yeah.
And touch their life. So yeah, that's definitely rewarding for me.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
5 years? Well, I've got a 5-year contract left on this directorship. So I see myself probably right here for 5 years. I mean, I like my job a lot. There's a lot of work to it, a little bit more now with the director than there was before, but I whenever I come to work, I never wonder, what am I doing here, or what do I have to do here? There's lots of stuff to do, but I like my job. I think I was lucky. I'm fortunate enough to have found something that really kind of works for me, and I don't have to punch a clock, which was the number one priority for me going in. Really, I used to work in worked in an ice cream shop in high school, and then a library where I just like stacked books, and I was like, I don't ever want to do this again.
Yeah.
Like, what job can I do that I can dictate my schedule? And that's pretty key.
So if you were to go back to a younger you, would you still see yourself in this position now?
Yep. Yeah, I think so. Professionally, I don't think there's much I would have changed. I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing. I sometimes think if I couldn't have this job, what would I do? And part of me is like, maybe I would have been like a high school teacher or something, and then I could get the summers off.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't spend too much time thinking that I'm missing out on some career.
Okay, so, that's good. That's good.
What would you say to someone suffering from SCI or TBI and like about research being done here?
What would I say to someone with SCI or TBI about the research being done here? All right, I gotta think about that because I do talk to these people. So you asked me what I would say to someone with a spinal cord injury or traumatic brain injury about the work that's being done here. I would say, come see us, come see the work. I can tell you about it, but come and see what we're doing. It's removed. We do a lot of basic science work, so things that are done more in animal models and more in the setting there than like clinical, true interventions directly into patients or individuals with TBI or SCI. But we want to hear what you want us to study, right? I mean, I think we have a responsibility. We get paid by the government, right? We're beholden to the public to make sure that our research is doing, the things that they want to see. And so come talk to us, come see it and see what we're doing and understand that process. It's a long process, but hopefully you can see where our goals are. And we're moving, I think, as a center to try to be more involved in clinically focused research. And so there's numbers of studies across multiple investigators that have started to really look and work much more with individuals with spinal cord injury and traumatic brain injury. And so as those opportunities grow, there'll be even more experiences and feedback needed, I think.
So when you said that you work with people that have spinal cord injuries, how do you do that? Like, where do you do that?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that I interact with people with spinal cord injuries. I was part of a working group from the North American Spinal Cord Injury Consortium to develop an advocacy course. Yeah. So this was a course that provides background training and materials from everything from how research runs to the FDA approval process to the history of clinical trials in spinal cord injury. And the goal of that is really to have a comprehensive course that anyone can take, from beginning researchers to individuals with spinal cord injury, so they can be informed about the research process and be better advocates within that space. So there was a lot of involvement there. We have an individual with spinal cord injury who joins us in our lab meeting every week, or almost every week. He's in Houston. He tries to zoom in and just give his perspective on some of the work that we're doing and to understand kind of the process. I think times he finds it a little cumbersome and administratively boring, which it is, but it's also important to see that. And then at the same time, he's been able to give us some feedback about some of the projects that we're designing. And we've been able to add different outcomes measures that are important to him and sort of, he's sculpted some of the work that we're doing as well. So,
that's awesome. How would you define success as a director?
So as a director, we have some short-term goals and long-term goals, right? And I can answer this question because I just had to do this for my job interview when I was interviewing to become the full director a little over a year ago. One measure of success is our ability to recruit faculty and students and others to kind of grow the center. We've been a long-standing center for 20 plus years, but over that time we've also had individuals now who have retired, and the center's sort of been shrinking over the last couple of years, and so we're actively recruiting now to try to grow. So one measure of success is, can we actually do that? We've been pretty successful so far. Brad Hubbard is one of those hires, and so it's been successful for you for sure. So that's part of it. I think longer visions for me are maintaining the mentoring programs that we have. with the arts program. We have some graduate level training programs. We have training programs for post-baccalaureate students. And so can we sort of maintain those and make them independently supported so that they continue even after, say, funding comes out from NIH funding? And then, the other vision too is to have more, going back to your question about interaction with the community of individuals who suffer from TBI, SCI, and try to have that sort of patient, individual-minded research and really have it a bigger part of what we're doing. So we're trying to partner with different clinical departments and sort of serve in that space where we as researchers understand the research process, but we don't necessarily understand the clinical practice and what needs to happen there.
Yeah.
So how can we help the clinicians and the research that they need to do? And at the same time, we aren't doctors, we're not going to be. And so, what feedback can they provide for us as well in terms of how we can be doing research? So we're trying to make those partnerships happen.
So on the other side, how do you guys overcome failure? How do you overcome failure?
How do I overcome failure?
Yeah.
Well, I think, it's funny because there was a faculty member who said that, research is just a bunch of failures, right? And that's true to an extent. You do an experiment, doesn't work. I think it's iterative learning. It's not a failure, you always learn something. So I guess when you say, how do I overcome failures? I think, well, I probably learn a lot, and every time that something doesn't go the way planned, there's a chance to reflect and think about how it may work better the next time. I think as a director too, I kind of have this idea that imperfect solutions are good solutions to problems and others, and that as long as you're flexible and willing to change, and if something doesn't work, then change it and do better, then I think you don't encounter many failures. I think often failures come more when we don't act and we maybe look for something perfect and instead we don't do anything. So I don't know. That may be a little bull in a china shop type thought, but I kind of feel like if you're moving forward, you're moving, and then you can kind of figure out where you're going on the fly. All right, so you're 5 or so weeks into the arts program. You talked a little bit about some of the experiences of it. So what was the most unexpected thing that's happened so far? Did you have some preconceived notions that were totally off?
Yes. So I'm in a clinical lab, not in a wet lab.
Right.
And so wasn't expecting that. And I'm not doing as much, or I'm obviously doing my research project, but there's having 2 PIs, there's so many opportunities to do so many things. I've seen a fat biopsy and a muscle biopsy, which was really cool. I've been involved when handling with patients and asking them questions or research questions that we're doing. I've been down in the clinic and just seeing how doctors and researchers are interacting in order to make science work, and the doctor talking about, is this patient going to be okay for this research project? Is it good? And seeing even researchers advocating for patients being like, no, they shouldn't, or yeah, they act like they'll be fine, kind of thing. So it's my personal journey of wanting to become a doctor but starting at research, it's very full circle. So that's been really nice.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been really awesome.
How about ask you a different question?
No, I can answer that.
Yeah, you wanted that? Okay, fine. That's that one.
Well, going back to what you were saying earlier about failure and how you needed to, learn from, to learn from it. I did not expect to be failing so many times, but the way I perceive failure and the way that failure is perceived in science are 2 different things. So having to change from one way of thinking to another way of thinking was kind of a jump, but as I lean into that, I'm learning more. I feel more confident in my science, and it's really interesting.
When you say failure seen differently in science other places, you mean where perhaps it's more accepted in science or a part of it?
You can learn from your mistakes, and he's okay, now this doesn't work. Now we know that we can block this out. But say I fail a test, I'm okay, I failed my test. I can't,
Yes. Yeah. It's more of an iterative growing process maybe in science, but it might not have to only be in science. Right?
Yeah. And you can take that mindset and put it all through, because if you fail a test, now you can see what you did bad on. You can it just had to change my mindset. That's really
So what about are there something that you really thought was going to happen that isn't? Like, what's your biggest disappointment? Not disappointment, perhaps, but you know, it's easy to say, "Oh, wow, this is something I didn't expect to learn." Is there something that you were like, "Wow, this totally is not the way I thought it was"? And
Well, I thought that something that I thought wasn't the way. I thought that if you just like if you have the procedure or the protocol in front of you, like it's very easy to follow. You can't mess it up. Like it's just 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
and you can make some mistakes. You can make a lot of mistakes. Is what I'm learning, and that's different to me. I thought I would catch on to it pretty easy. I thought as long as I had the steps in front of me, I can catch on to it pretty easy. Also, the rats are really interesting, or the mice are really interesting. Both are really interesting. I haven't seen them yet, but I should be seeing them soon and going down there and seeing what they do. I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. How about
Okay.
for you? Is there anything that you were really kind of caught off guard by, or that you thought would be easy that you're like, "Wow, this is not what I anticipated"?
I was caught off guard by not being in a wet lab. And I was like, oh, like obviously we can do research with actual patients. Like that's obviously an option. But I never thought that I would be doing or that it was going to be available through the program. And then I never thought I was going to ever use my stats class ever again.
Really? Oh,
So
man.
I'm having to go back through my notes and figure out what I'm doing. But yeah, I mean, that was not really a disappointment, but it's a surprise.
Yeah, it's a surprise. That's a big part.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Good.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gensel, for your time and speaking with us in the SCoBIRC Arts program.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you guys for the questions, and I look forward to the next half of the program. It should be great.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, guys.
I think it's very important to see that there are people in high places that are still fighting to have access to opportunity for people of various backgrounds. Various backgrounds provide different ways of thinking, and different ways of thinking provide different avenues to finding the right answer, or in our case, a therapeutic technique or a cure. And while it may take a really long time, at least we're striving to have that diverse background so that we can promote science even better. Now, we're going to hear from a couple of art students while also talk about their excursion to the Newport Aquarium and how that was for them, and just an opportunity for them to just be kids again.
So, hi, my name is Jory Wilson. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I went to high school in Northwest Indiana at Lake Central High School, and then I came to the University of Kentucky here in Lexington, and I am a junior, and I'm studying biology with a minor in pharmacology.
So my name is Adriana Rainey. I am a junior. I am from Louisville, Kentucky, and I major in neuroscience with a minor in biology.
And my name is Lydia Flowers. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and I came from a school in Louisville called Louisville Male High School, and I now attend the University of Kentucky studying kinesiology, exercise science on the pre-PA track.
My name is Lauren Hill. Obviously, University of Kentucky. I am a rising senior. I'm studying agricultural and medical biotechnology, and I went to high school in McLean, Virginia, and so I went to McLean High School.
So what brought me to science, I'm gonna be honest, I was never pretty good at any other subject. English was not very much my strong suit. I was not very artsy or kind of creative in that manner, so I really leaned towards science. And also I really enjoyed learning new things about the world and the human body, and really tapping into that kind of stuff that I never knew before. And my parents were very encourative of it, and also a lot of my teachers growing up, and I was in advanced classes in high school and middle school for science, took a lot of AP classes, and that just furthered my interest in my education as well.
Ooh, that's a great question. So, there are a lot of reasons why I became interested in science. When I was in middle school, I would literally read books from the library, and like they would just be like books about the body, about food illnesses, and those kind of things. And so, like, I was always really interested in biology. And then that interest kind of became greater when my sister was born. So, it's like science has always been in my life. And so that's why I'm in science, mainly because of my family and just the interest I found when I was younger.
My career goal is to work in anesthesia, specifically to be a PA in anesthesia. I would like to work in PA specifically because I've been treated badly in the healthcare field by other healthcare professionals as a patient, and I feel like it's important to advocate for those who can't always speak up or speak out. When I was about 13, I was riding on a four-wheeler in Mississippi, where my family is originally from, and I got knocked off the four-wheeler. The four-wheeler ran over me and dragged me down a hill, and it ended with me having second-degree burns, and I had like no skin on my legs or my arms, and I was rushed to the hospital, of course, because I couldn't walk and I had like no skin. And so at the hospital, I was treated very badly by medical staff, as well as like even the receptionist, because I didn't know my social security number, but it was very imperative that I needed medical attention.
I would love to be a doctor of osteopathic medicine. I really, really love the mind, body, spirit approach of DO medicine and their approach of using what your body already does and has to heal yourself. I think that's really powerful, and it just kind of aligns with my personal beliefs. Also, there is obviously a problem with the overprescription of drugs, and I think DO and like the way they practice medicine is kind of the answer.
Yes, this summer I am doing the arts program. The reason why I applied to this program was because I really wanted to gain experience in a lab. I knew later in life that I would be interested in conducting some kind of research and just helping people out. And I know that research has just served as like a catalyst for so many other opportunities. So applying to this program, I felt like I could make the connections that I needed. I'd be able to get some kind of experience in the lab. And honestly, I've met so many people here. So, since the first day of arts program, everyone has been absolutely amazing, and I just love meeting new people. My mentor is amazing, and I've learned so much outside of my classes. And it's kind of funny how like your like UK core classes, they kind of align. Like all the things that we learned in our previous classes are like popping up and down. So it's kind of interesting to see how that plays a role. So this summer, I am just really excited to be doing this program, and I am extremely grateful for the people beyond me.
This summer, I applied to be a part of the arts SCoBIRC program because I was already in a lab. I was already obviously pursuing agricultural and medical biotechnology, which requires me to be in a lab. And I figured that, arts is about being in a lab and learning how to do research, learn different techniques, and putting it all together into a project, into something that you can present and share with other people. And so I figured, hey, this is right up my degree alley, and I get to work in a new field. I am doing this semester, I'm working with obesity and diabetes research, and this would be like brain and spinal cord research. So I thought that was just a little mix up to what I'm already doing. So.
It's hard to say because I've learned so much in such a little time. But the coolest thing that I've learned is really how animal models are such an important thing in research, and just making sure that we are using them and learning the importance of them has really been an eye-opening thing for me, because I, as a person outside of research, I've never really thought about that before.
This summer, I am working in Dr. Barto's lab, and one of the coolest things that I've seen in his lab so far is how the rats have been entering their experiments, and kind of how they act afterwards, since we're studying drug recovery.
I've had a really great experience. I like my mentors, love my PI, I like the lab that I'm in, and I really feel like I'm doing something beneficial. Like I feel like I'm adding more than I'm just sitting here not doing anything. I feel like I'm having my time well spent. Some skills I've learned is time management, organization. That was something I really struggled with, being very organized. I think I've perfected being organized, because if you're not organized in the lab, everything falls apart. I've managed a work-life balance. Because I spend so much time in the lab, it's important to still hang out with friends, and I'm still in summer school, so it's important to balance everything out. This arts experience has really opened my eyes and taught me that because I've learned time management and work-life balance, that I can now use this in my future career as a PA, as I still want to see the world and be young, but also help those around the world. I would like to treat my patients fairly and still experience the world and get to know myself as I'm still young, as well as provide excellent treatment and help those who cannot be heard.
Outside of science, I would like to say I'm a very relaxed person. What I do to de-stress, I read, I watch a lot of TV, and I like mostly to spend quality time with people, like friends and especially my family. I'm very much a homebody, so that is one thing that I really, really enjoy. And outside of science and outside of school, I would say I am a very, what's the word for it? Yeah, chill person. I like to just, go out to eat sometimes and, bowl, do stuff like that. So, yeah.
Okay, this is a great question. So outside of lab, in my free time, I love to shop. I order off of Amazon a lot. I order way too many packages. I love going to the gym. I've just gained a love for going to the gym. So now I'm like at the point in my life where I like to wake up at 6 in the morning and go to the gym. And so, yeah, it's one of the things I love to do. I also like to write. Sometimes I love to just search the internet and just learn about things. I just like to learn most of the time. So if I'm not at the gym and I'm not writing, I'm not ordering things off of Amazon, I'm probably on my computer. Oh, and skating. I love skating so much, roller skating.
It's been really great. We have like a little community already, which is really nice, and I feel like we got to know each other pretty quickly. There's also so much opportunity. Like, yes, we're in a lab most of the day, but particularly in my lab, I'm meeting a ton of different people, and I'm getting so much more experience than just bench work, which I really appreciate. And so there's that aspect. And then every week we get to come together and talk about the crazy stuff we've seen in lab, or the successes, or even just the failures that we've had. And we're all going through this program together. And so as much as it is individual lab work, it's also very fast-paced learning and community as well.
Y'all are too cute.
Jory, look. Now we will hear from our arts alumni, Ijemin, and her experience on arts and how arts has propelled her into what she wants to do now. So let's take a listen.
My name's Ijemin Unicalo. Some people call me EJ. I am a senior here at UK. I'm from Frankfort, Kentucky. Went to Franklin County High School, so I didn't travel too far for college. Lexington's always felt like a second home to me. So I really love UK, and I've loved my 3 years here, and I'm excited to see where the future takes me. So I've always loved science. I've always wanted to be a doctor. I've always been really interested in the medical field. So when I came to college, what really brought me to UK was the big name behind research and science and all the amazing resources that I would have as a student at UK. I had no idea about research really. I didn't know that that was something that I wanted to pursue. Um, but then I was able to do the arts program last summer of my junior year, and that was my first time ever doing research, and I fell in love with it. And I think just having that research mindset compared to just having a scientific background, just like science classes that I had taken, I have a more in-depth idea of science, and also just seeing the big picture, seeing why things happen, why things are the way that they are. It's been a life-changing experience for me, and I'm still in my lab right now, so I've been here for a year, and I've grown so much, and I'm excited to see what more I will still be able to learn because I've already learned a lot. So some of the skills that I learned from the arts program that I still use today have to be learning from my mistakes and not being embarrassed about my mistakes, because I have always been a perfectionist and I've always wanted to perform the best and just get everything right on the first try. And I was humbled when I did the arts program because every mistake possible on I've made every mistake possible. And it was humbling. I had to really learn who I was and learn that it's okay to make mistakes. Like no one's perfect. That's literally impossible. No one's perfect. So just learning from those mistakes and asking questions. That is my biggest thing that I still do now. I ask so many questions, and people may get annoyed with me because I'm always asking like why, what, how. But questions help. You don't want to go into anything confused. Like I really want to have a thorough understanding of what I'm doing. So I always ask questions, and I'm honestly not embarrassed when I ask questions because I feel like the more you ask, the better. So the arts program really helped me with that, and also helped me become more comfortable in myself and in my abilities to be a researcher, because I never thought that that could be something that would be my life now. So just knowing that I'm capable, and all the people that guided me in the arts program that are still guiding me today, they saw that I was capable, and now I can see it too, but it wouldn't have been without all their help. So I'm very grateful, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities that the arts program gave me and the skills that I gained from that program. So what keeps me going in science is always wanting to know more. I've always just been the person to go above and beyond. I always want to know more, do more, just go out of my way to better myself and also broaden my knowledge. So, in research, I love how I'm always able to figure something out. Even if it's not what I hypothesized, there's always something that you can get from data, that you can kind of tie to a bigger picture. And then you can redo the experiment. You can do different things in the experiment to better understand the question that you're trying to answer. So just seeing the whole process of answering a research question and knowing that it's not going to be linear, you're going to kind of venture from your path, and you're going to have to take roadblocks, and you're going to have to really understand what is happening rather than just trying to get to the end. That is my biggest thing with science, because there's a lot of multiple answers that you can get from one question, and that's something that just keeps me going. I always want to know more. So knowing that there's just a variety of possibility out there, even in the medical profession, knowing that there's a lot of things that I can do in the future, knowing I'm not just limited to being a medical doctor. I can do research in addition to being a doctor. I can but yeah, there's a lot of possibility out there, and that's what I really love about research.
Thank you for staying to the end of part 2 of SCoBIRC Cirque web series, where today we focus on access to opportunity. Next installment, we'll be focusing on the future of science in SCoBIRC and interviewing some PhD students, looking at scientific techniques from a PhD candidate, while also listening to what a postdoc has to say about their experience and also what they have done to project themselves forward in the scientific field. See you next time. Once again, this is Teddy Mo, and this is the SCoBIRC Cirque web series.